This is gonna be a good one. What if World War Hulk invaded Earth during a Civil War comic event? What if the American government and even more come to realize that there's a much greater threat at play than they previously thought? What becomes of the planet as we know it? The Civil War saw a diverse impact come from various additions to a story plot that saw heroes and villains placed in groups and faced up against each other, while all still had the end goal of providing a better life for humans and their counterparts. Before this timeline and tragic events, Hulk had met the unfortunate fate of being banished to the outside planets, where he eventually crash landed on a world all too perfect for him to lose, Sakaar. Many are already aware of the trials, love, conquer, loss, and power Hulk faced in Sakaar. But what if these events had happened a lot faster, setting up a period where Hulk arrived on Earth in the middle of the Civil War chaos with nothing but blunt anger thrusting through his green veins as he lusted vengeance. In the past few months, America has already plunged into a state of turmoil, as many citizens raged on the streets in protest against their so-called superheroes, their banners taunting messages and outcries. Too many lives lost, all for the sake of self-important super species. Already, the American government, with aid from the tech billionaire and undercover hero, Iron Man, has declared the Superhuman Registration Act, requiring all superhumans of any sort of advancement, be it natural or tech-enhanced, to be enlisted and registered with the government while going on assignments and training for those who wish to embark and continue their work as superheroes. The line between superheroes and villains has already been drawn thin, as many superhumans have been divided into three groups: those who obey the laws and have been registered, those who remain indifferent and want no part in the incidents of humanity, and those who oppose the law and fight back against the enforcers of the act. With this division came many battles between the enforcers and secret Avengers that plunged the cities in the states into further turmoil as even more lives were lost, property and resources damaged gravely, and landscapes immediately destroyed. The fate of humanity has long seen a darkness part with an uncertain future. Tony Stark is in a heated state after facing off against one that he had treated like a son and built up. Now, after that battle against Spider-Man, he revokes his faith in Iron Man's decision, and now act following the death of Bill Foster. The Black Goliath is the last face-off between the Enforcers and Secret Avengers. He escapes the clutches of Spider-Man in search of Captain America, who acts as the leader of the Secret Avengers to join their initiative. Tony Stark watches the young Spider escape his tower as he is reluctant to follow, doubting at the moment his own decision to enforce this law. Eventually, he gives back into his morals, assuring himself that whatever he does today, he does for the benefit of mankind as a whole, a goal much bigger than he is. Getting all wind up by Spider-Man's betrayal, he commands Jarvis to get in contact with the once villains and now new members of the Thunderbolts team, Jester 3 and Jack-O-Lantern, to track down Spider-Man and do whatever they must to have him detained and brought back for imprisonment. Jarvis agrees to his commands, but before the system can have Tony's commands done, they are interrupted by an incoming signal from Maria Hill, the head leader and director of S.H.I.E.L.D. The signal is tagged as urgent, which Jarvis informs Tony about. Tony approaches and a hologram displays Maria is released. Maria, who looks frantic, alerts Tony about a confirmed UFO traveling at immense speeds towards Earth and estimated to crash into the woods nearby Tennessee in just a few hours. Tony is a bit skeptical, feeling that this isn't an issue worth wasting his time on, but after Maria goes into detail, explaining that the object, while being currently studied, exhibits abnormal high rates of radiation, Tony signs, almost asking why S.H.I.E.L.D. couldn't solve the issue on their own, but changes his mind, agreeing to investigate the case. Once the signal is cut, Tony then commands Jarvis to have Jester and Jack-o'-lantern investigate the crash landing rather than looking back through the huge hole in the glass window to which Spider-Man used to escape, assuring himself he would eventually get a hold of him. Jarvis agrees and tends to his commands. In Tennessee, hours later, many civilians watch the approaching UFO, speeding down with green rays emitting brightly as it descends into the forest with a big bang that shakes the earth, at which they stand for a bit. News reporters and even the cops surrounding the edges of the city as they wait anxiously for news of what just crashed into planet Earth. At the same time, Doctor Strange, who dwells along with the secret Avengers in their base, gets in contact by the Watcher about the arrival of a massive brute force that would become a threat to humanity. Even more so, the current events had pressed. Doctor Strange is struck with the fear. Although he chose solidarity for moral issues, he couldn't just sit and pretend that there wasn't an issue. Strange had then spoke out Captain America, who's currently amongst other members of the secret Avengers at a chamber, discussing the matters of the city events and how to deal with them. Doctor Strange bargains in, gaining instant attention of everyone in the room. His only words are, "There's chaos." Jester and Jack arrived at the scene of the crash to the abandoned crash ship. They could tell that they had gotten a visitor since the cap of the 50-feet ship was busted open, and it would not be long before they confirmed their beliefs. Farther away were pedestrians, reporters, and the cops waiting. They heard a growl sound. It was distorted in their hearing and a phase to their vision. The ground where they stood pounded on as something huge was approaching out of the covers of the woods. A green humanoid monstrosity appeared, towering the crowd by feet and overshadowing some. "It's the Hulk," a younger boy cried, as many of the crowd noticed it was the Hulk, dressed in war armor, and dragged alongside him a heavy hammer in one hand. The crowd took pictures and cheered, but these cheers would eventually die out as one too many started taking note of the mood in which Hulk was in. His eyes raged with anger. His veins spiked as if they would burst, and worst of all, Hulk released whatever he gripped tightly in his hand. A detached head of Jester fell to the ground, faint in color from all of the radiation Hulk had received. The crowd was aware of the situation and started pacing back, but that wasn't what pissed off the Hulk. The policemen evaded out the scene. They had all of their guns aimed at Hulk, and without orders or warning, one fired a deflected shot, which did it for Hulk. Hulk to a stance while he conjured up as much energy as he gained from his body, a skill he gained from his lost wife who died in the explosion on Scar. Green rays brightly from his body as a crowd could only just watch in amazement. Then boom. A loud bang sending shockwaves. It was felt all over America, and it was released as Hulk had just blasted radiance everyone from his body on Earth. The impact could even be seen by astronomers far out of space. It took hours, but several heroes from the Registration Parliament had shown up to investigate the situation. All were left in shock as what had become of Nashville City, Tennessee. Through the majority of the city was untouched. The city looked like it had suffered a hurricane, buildings crashed, bodies littered the floor, and worst of all, a huge area of a blast that emitted increasing high values of radiation. Tony, who had experienced what felt like an earthquake throughout the states, waited anxiously for results at his tower. Jarvis alerted him that War Machine was ready to report the status. The signals were ready up, and the hologram's transmissions. War Machine's current presence was displayed. War Machine updated Iron Man on the situation at Nashville in detail, even the deaths of Jester and Jack after the search team recovered torn up pieces. Tony was sick to his stomach upon hearing this, and felt incredibly confused. He tried pinpointing the culprit, but the details he received didn't match any villain that he ever knew of. It was then Tony heard his name called from behind. He turned around instantly, frightened a bit. Fortunately, it was Doctor Strange. Unfortunately, he was with Captain America, Black Widow, and Falcon. Stark, in confusion, wondered how they got into his tower without being noticed, but upon studying their state of existence, he knew they weren't there because they were just mere reflections. Tony argued Captain America to turn themselves in and that this was about them. Rogers held his ground, stating his reason for contacting him. Rogers wanted to pursue Iron Man into actually joining forces to take down the bigger threat, Hulk. Tony was shocked, not believing it at first, until Doctor Strange confirmed his culprit to be Hulk. One of incredible power, fueled by emotions with a lot of hatred. It could power the country if used as energy. Tony couldn't believe his ears, but he wasn't going to just stop here. He warned Captain America to turn himself in and cut the foolish act. He then asked Doctor Strange why he couldn't just stop Hulk, but Strange reminded him of his indifference to the situation, stating he was making his last attempt here now to help a divided world such as humanity. Tony, still stubborn as ever, agreed that he didn't need their help to take down Hulk and would be just fine to do it alone. Gave Captain America the last warning and walked away. Tony quickly went into the planning phase, trying to figure out a plan to stop Hulk, but first he would have to locate him. Pepper Potts, concerned, walked up to Tony and asked him to consider Captain America's offer. Tony, however, didn't listen, making up excuses as to why he couldn't work with fugitives. He then asked his computer to search for any trace of signs of abnormal radiations on Earth, which weren't long before the job was done. Tony kissed Pepper and assured her everything would be alright, before suiting up and blasting off to the location. Before he did, he asked his computer to call in reinforcements. Pepper was left alone, saddened, and contemplated whether to suit up and follow her husband, but she has decided to tail Tony. Doctor Strange called out for her from behind again, alone and still in his mere appearance. Hulk, still angry and raging, arrived at the location he wanted. He had arrived at the beach off the coast of New York, which he planned to use to get to Atlantis to meet with Namor. He planned to beat up everyone who voted for him to be kicked off the Earth, but he had no intentions of killing Namor, knowing fully well that Namor voted not to. Hulk didn't want to kill anyone. All he ever wanted was to destroy everything the Illuminati held dear. The Illuminati consisted of many heroes who voted for his leave, like Iron Man, Doctor Strange, Captain America, Captain Britain, Mad Thinker, Medusa, Black Bolt, and more. Hulk needed to use Namor to draw all of them out, but after he had figured out how to get him, it was at this point a missile came out of nowhere and slammed into Hulk, pushing him back a bit. He looked above, seeing the Illuminati, but saw the arrival of S.H.I.E.L.D. and the American military forces as well. This feeling within him grew even stronger. Even more, it was a disappointment, but turned into anger. Something even more destructive. More missiles and firepower were thrown against him as many civilians scrambled to get away. Hulk bursted out in anger and put up a fight, deflecting all of the firepower while smashing any obstacles in his way, using them as tossing balls and repelling them to bits, his attackers. Though he tried at first to minimize the damage, the rage and the thoughts, and the fact that he was in New York, a city he knew all too well, the Illuminati treasured, were incredibly addictive. He lashed out, destroying anything and everything into massive bits. Tony had been following the signal at the last abnormal irradiations on Earth. Surprisingly, it was happening right there in the city. He rushed up to the place of impact, but after where he saw the heaps of bodies, death and destruction, the battle had already subsided, and Hulk was nowhere to be found. And something told him humans didn't win this fight. He quickly asked Jarvis to track down the signal again, which she did, and once Tony received the exact location of where he could supposedly find Hulk, he froze in shock. It was at his tower. Tony rushed over there, his praying that he wasn't too late, as Pepper was back there. As he approached the tower, he could see Hulk waiting for him on the top of it. Parts of the building had been smashed off, and Hulk was ever aggressive and even massiver. In his embrace, he held Pepper, who was freaking out in pain. "Stop this, Bruce," Tony screamed at the top of his voice. "Why are you doing this?" Hulk at that moment roared, completely becoming berserk. "It's because you lost your wife, son, and planet, isn't it?" Doctor Strange appeared in the real form from behind him, and he wasn't alone. Captain America was with him. Most of the enforcers had started showing up to the battlefield to partake in Doctor Strange, who had gone to great lengths to understand Hulk's reasonings, explained his intentions. Hulk stared from above, waiting perfectly for the right moment. There was going to be no negotiations, not until he had taken revenge. Captain America called upon Tony to make his deal once again, and for the last time, he would let the Secret Avengers fight as it was all their fight, and not just his, and he would let them leave. Tony had no other choice. Hulk already had Pepper, and he agreed with Doctor Strange. Using his portals made most of them appear. Hulk, who had been watching from the top, had finally achieved his goal of luring them all there. He took his very stance again and started to grow green radiations. Tony tried to stop by reasoning, noticing that if he got too close, Hulk would kill Pepper. He is going to give off a blast, War Machine screamed. He wants to destroy New York. Black Widow said at this point all of the heroes and villains involved were either trying to get the Hulk quick enough or get away from him as far as possible. Meanwhile, in the back scene, Doctor Strange was already conjuring up a spell. Boom. The same massive explosion that took place in Nashville had happened again. Most of the heroes were shielded by Doctor Strange, but he couldn't save everyone, nor every civilian. Tony's tower had been demolished to nothing, and all that was left was broken frames. No, Thor screamed, watching Pepper evaporate to nothing. For a slight second after the explosion, Hulk calmed down before the attack. Doctor Strange, who had already been cooking up something, quickly created a portal behind Hulk's back, came from behind and placed his hands on his head. Using his powers, he fought the will of Hulk and broke freely into his mind, so he could place Hulk's mind in a state of translucence. Hulk instantly fell asleep, and as his mind wandered, he was with everything he loved once again, with his family. This will slow him for now, but we must not imprison him, it won't last forever, Doctor Strange said to Tony, who was already in a daze from what had happened at that moment. The military drove in their vehicles, shooting at the Secret Avengers. Betrayal, Spider-Man screamed. But Doctor Strange knew Tony had nothing to do with it. He quickly opened up a portal to allow as many of the Secret Avengers to escape. While he screamed at Hulk, saying Pepper was alive, Tony looked at him in confusion. Doctor Strange explained that he knew Hulk would have come for Tony, and most likely, Pepper would have been taken as hostage, so he replaced her with a double, and that she was with the Secret Avengers through the portals. Tony didn't hesitate. It was a strain on Doctor Strange's mind, and to keep Hulk in the state that he was in, he was still battling Hulk's strong will. Tony reunited with Pepper, but being surrounded by the Secret Avengers, he was easily detained. Hulk was imprisoned and Doctor Strange had vanished. And that is going to be what if World War Hulk had invaded in the Civil War comic event. What did you guys think of this Marvel's What If, and what did you think of World War Hulk going after Iron Man and his family, and going after Namor and all of the rest of them that had sent him to space? It would have been so cool if we would have got an official What If comic book where World War Hulk would have invaded in Civil War. I know they've done so many different What Ifs with World War Hulk, but they've never done this one, and I thought, why not do it? But anyways, as always guys, thanks for tuning in, and make sure to subscribe, like, share, and turn your notifications on so you and your friends are all up to date with the latest content. But anyways, as always guys, peace out.